Oh, Mr. Lunny, it just seems like this year is flying, my friend. And listen, I know that people may listen to this at different times, but we just kind of wrapped up in Texas
Mhm.
the long road to the marching band playoffs,
Yeah.
as I like to call them. We had a region level, then an area level, and then state competition.
Mhm.
Lots of our friends were part of that. Lots of our friends did well, so congratulations to everybody. Um, but kind of the other side of that is, and it's not a negative thing. Like, I live in a world where I believe somebody wins, not everybody wins.
Right.
Um, and that's sometimes it's not fun, but that's kind of the reality of what life is. But some of us, we're all of us kind of in this point of, I do this with my employees. I don't know if you did this with your bands or your leadership, where we kind of pause and we look and we say, okay, what worked?
Mhm.
What were the challenges this year? What did we uh, overcome, or what could we write a plan for moving forward? Because I sent you a text the other day. Oh, a lot of people call them different things, but wise sayings or quotes. I love quotes.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was listening to a motivational guy who's really big on finishing strong and good habits to get you to the right place.
Mhm.
And he was talking about there's only three things you could do to make a change,
That's
right?
pretty tough, but it's correct. Yeah.
He said you can quit doing something, you can start doing something new, or you can work harder at what you are doing.
Right.
And so that's a very boiled down, condensed version. But do you think that relates to our profession as music educators
Oh,
or
there's no
groups?
doubt about that, Derrick. It's, relates to everything in life, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Kind of the old atomic habits approach distilled down into 3 statements instead of a huge book, and the book is great telling you how to do those 3 things, but those are the 3 things, those are
So,
exactly
but
the
let's
3 things.
highlight that book for us again. It's called Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits by James Clear, Clear.
Okay.
It's really a great book. I mean, it'll
What
it'll change what you do with everything in life, whether it's church, home life, career. It is really
well
a
I
good book.
I know you've referenced it. I know our friend Eric Baker referenced it.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe if we've got time right now as we head into the holidays and we're looking for a book to kind of roll around in the head to read, you recommend that book, yeah?
Oh, yeah, and I spend so much time on the road during this time of year, well, not this time of year, the prior to this time of year, that,
Sure.
I just use the audiobooks, and I can listen to it over and over and over and select what chapters I wanna listen to while I'm driving 2 hours somewhere, you know?
Well, can you expand on just those three simple points? Start something, quit something, do something better?
Yeah, the idea is that, in Atomic Habits and in this, saying, you've got to start doing something a lot of times to stop doing something else. You replace one habit with another habit, if that
Okay.
makes sense. So if you're doing something a certain way and you don't like it, then find some other way to do it and replace that habit, and then you try to get better at everything you're already doing, So I don't know, it's hard to expand on it. It's basically an idea that, you Atomic Habits, the reason of the title, because the atom's the smallest unit of whatever, and
Sure,
the
sure.
idea is that you make big changes through little tiny changes. It can be something as simple as we painted the inside of our, marching band trailer white so that we could see where everything was dropped instead of it being black.
Right.
So
No, that makes sense.
you see that black bolt on the ground or the certain type of valve oil that has a longer lasting viscosity, and it's a little tiny thing, but you keep adding all those little 1,000, 1,500 little tiny changes, and all of a sudden you get this big change. All of a sudden your band is more successful because everyone's thinking that way now. So
Sure.
that's kinda in a nutshell, that's kind of it. You do what needs to be done, sometimes little tiny at the atomic level, changing what you're doing, and you can do that in your own life. If you want to go to the gym more, you can do the same thing. You can just set your alarm clock and get up for 2 weeks at that time. Then the next 2 weeks, you get out your workout clothes and you lay them on the bed. The next
Right.
2 weeks, you put on your workout clothes and you drive to the
And
gym.
whoa,
Then
time out,
finally you
time out.
go to the gym
So
instead of
you're
going to the
saying
gym and killing yourself.
the habit is not initially is not going to the gym. The habit is learning how to do the things every day to get you to the gym.
That's exactly right. The same reason both of us as gentlemen made our coffee this morning.
That's true.
That's
Because
more
I
of a
wouldn't be
habit than it
functional.
is a necessary medicinal need. You know, it's
That's
a
true.
habit. We get up and we make our coffee. If you're like me, I make it the same way. If I'm at my house, it's the same way I do it every day. You know, and it's
Yeah.
more of a habitual thing than it is, oh God, I've got to have coffee.
I've wondered that. Listen, I have people argue with me all the time that panacea medication is probably as effective as actual medication
Yeah,
because our
that's
brain
right.
thinks it is. I don't know if people actually have to, I hear people, I can't function without coffee. There's a sign on my wall right there. Is there life before coffee?
Yeah, and there's some truth to that too. We're kind of addicted to that caffeine, aren't we? But it's all kinds of things. Just the way we get up in the morning and the way we go take a shower and brush our teeth. These are all just atomic habits of things we do every day. And the idea is if you want to make a big change in your life, figure out what are the 15 atomic habits I can establish to make that big change happen.
Even
Easy
in
to say,
reference
hard to
to
do.
rehearsals or just
Oh yeah, definitely with rehearsals. There's no doubt about that. You can the tiniest thing of just making sure we adjust our stands the right height before we start rehearsing can make the
so everybody
difference of
can
a
see
first
us,
division
right?
and a second division later. That's one of
That's
those little
crazy.
tiny atomic habits, that you just try to instill in ourselves and in our ensembles.
So let me ask you this. Would you say yes, no, maybe? There are things we could do procedurally in our programs that have nothing to do with actual rehearsal, but will make us have better rehearsals and a more successful program. Whether that's you're in your chair by this point, you are ready to play this by this point. Because listen, my wife, if you've ever seen the movie Rain Man,
Mhm.
often accuses me of being that routine oriented.
Right.
If I get out of my routine, I struggle. And
Right.
that is what it is. Definitely Judge Wapner, time for Judge Wapner.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
but at the same time, it brings me comfort and I do things better when I know what to expect at what time and how it works.
Yeah.
It's not,
Something as simple as how do we check roll?
okay,
I've gone to band halls where the head band director spends 3, 4, 5 minutes every day going down check and roll, and they'll even ask, "Where is Susie?" "Oh, they've got a volleyball game today." "Oh, okay." And then 5 minutes later, you're thinking, "Now, if we spend 5 minutes a day, that's 20 minutes a week. That's 80 minutes a month." Okay, so we're losing quite a bit of rehearsal time by the time, by the time
sure.
we add that up for a year for 186 days, so you can do the math. It's exponential, but just something as simple as have your drum major or band secretary check roll, and then you double check at the end and just read the names and see if it's correct, and you're done. There's little tiny things we can do. Some are musical, some are not musical. But it seems like the non-musical ones tend to have the most impact on the logistics of the rehearsal.
You say that, and that's what you say. It seems insignificant,
Mhm.
but it has significant results.
Right.
And I do think it's somewhat of a mindset that we develop as opposed to, I love to build models, even if it there are activities I do just to make my mind not think about all the heavy things. Um, Legos. My kids gave me an Iron Man
Oh,
Lego
cool.
set. I put it together. A lot of times you'll see it in the background.
Yeah,
I try
yeah.
to make sure he attends some of our recordings. But the point being, follow the directions, snap it together the way it's supposed to be, and my brain focuses on somebody else's already put the thought there for me, and it lets me kind of stop thinking about all the things that I can't figure out. Way too philosophical for what we're trying to say, but my point is sometimes the minutia or the trivial actually dictate attitude
Mhm,
peace of mind,
mhm.
you know? So, um,
Or
I can
something
see
as
what you're
simple as
saying.
the kids having an instrument room. Some band halls, all the equipment's in the main hall, and I like that better
Sure,
actually. But if you have a room with all the instruments in it with 2 doors, make one an indoor and one an outdoor. How many times have I seen a band hall where they're all trying to both go through both doors and leave both doors and go in at the same
sure.
time? Where do they put their backpacks? Where do they put their cases? And it seems like, you don't wanna spend time dealing with all that, but you've got like 186 rehearsals going on, during that year. You might as well figure it out for them and tell them, "So, okay, guys, all the backpacks stay in the hallway or they stay on these shelves," whatever the case might be. Just get it figured out so the kids don't come in with all their stuff and just drop it, you know, and then go
You
get their
know,
horn and bump into each other and scream and yell and get to their seats.
but I laugh at that because our beginner classes, that's the first 3 weeks of our class.
Yeah, procedure, procedure, procedure.
And then somewhere in high school, we assume that we don't have to rehearse that anymore. I don't know.
Yeah,
Not everybody, but some.
we like to pretend they're adults,
Oh, yeah.
but they're still kids. Heck, we as band directors are still kids. I don't care. I'm 61 years old. I still feel like a kid sometimes, and sometimes I really do feel 61. But those high
Right.
school students, they're still kids. You got to give some sort of guardrails of this is what we're doing, this is where this
Sure.
goes, and that way they're good about it because they sign up for band. They just want someone to tell them what to do.
I've been in retail for over 30 years, and a large part of that in supervisor roles. It doesn't matter how old people are, they still want to know. They probably don't say this as much. They still wanna know what's expected. How do you want me to do this? Is this the way you want it done? And they work better when they know that
That's right.
instead of, "Man, I hope I did that okay and nobody's gonna yell at me." And I encourage
Yeah, and
as
it
much, individual, I say proactive. I could forgive a proactive mistake over, I just
right.
didn't do anything because I didn't wanna mess up, and that doesn't really work in a band rehearsal. Don't need any proactivity going on.
Yeah, we like to keep the activity at a minimum.
But my point being, the human and we've talked about this as far as boundaries, that when people know the boundaries and they know the fence, where's the fence, they're more comfortable and they can be who they are instead of wondering what's acceptable and what's not. And so
Yeah.
I think that's conducive to a good rehearsal. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but
Oh, I agree with 100%. I've got some things maybe the directors can think about, because sometimes we complicate it up way too much, and we kinda talked about some logistics. Yeah. Hey, put that hand down, that's alright. That's alright, that's why we keep you on the podcast.
hi,
You
my
keep me
name's
honest.
Derrick.
That's
I'm an
right.
overthinker.
But we can complicate it, but the logistical parts we kind of went over, and there'll be some other logistical things, but here's some things they can think about as a band director. Something as simple as, can you hear the melody where the melody exists, or is the accompaniment too loud? And we fall into that trap as band directors because many times the accompaniment parts have too many players playing it, and the part is generally easier. And we're so excited that somebody's playing something.
Middle voices.
Yeah, and we're like, "That's oh, wow, everybody's playing bum, 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 bum," and we're excited, that something's being played, and we didn't have to stop and fix everything, that we kinda let that go by. A good friend of mine, Dane Richardson at Holiday, he always says, "If you have the melody, project it. If you don't have the melody, protect it."
Oh, wow.
And that really sticks in kids' minds, and I've stolen that quote and used it many a year now, but it's
That's
it's
great.
it's it's like the melody's like a little tiny baby, and you've gotta
Yeah.
protect it. It can't exist on its own. You can't, just throw the baby down when you're tired of the baby. You
Right,
can't put it under the couch. So,
right.
you gotta protect that melody like a little tiny infant, and so you gotta protect it. If you have the melody, you gotta project it like a baby crying. That's got it projects. So I think that's one thing where we fall short, and I've even seen that all the way till the day of contest. When you go judge, and it's like, I can't hear the melody on anything. All I hear is accompaniment parts the whole time. And I think sometimes we just, as directors, become deaf to it because we hear it a certain way, certain number of times in a row, and our brain tells us it's correct. So be careful, record, listen to it, record it, play back for the kids. That the kids they're the worst critics of their our best critics, however you want to look at it, of their own work. They'll tell you, so, Mr. Lunny, that doesn't sound right. They'll tell
Right.
you, well, why doesn't it sound right? And they'll tell you, but they don't hear the whole band until you play
Yeah.
it for them.
Right. And then my brain's still stuck here listening to bump, 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 and I'm like, "Is that Granger or is that Holst?"
I think it's every tune on the contest list now. Dun, 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 digga-da-da-da, digga-da-da-da, digga-da-da. It's, those accompaniment parts are something else, and a lot of times, and this is a tangent to it as far as preparing your band, but a lot of times you can cut down the numbers of players on those accompaniment parts and let them take turns, kinda like in a good jazz band, let the guitar player comp, then let the piano player comp. You can have A and B sets of players, and you don't have to have 8 trombones and whatever else playing the accompaniment the whole time. So just that's off on a tangent, not
No,
really
no.
about what we're talking
Let me
about.
let me hop on that tangent with you though. Do you think kids
Okay.
are offended when you tell them that's too many on there? I only need 1 or 2 of you to play that?
I think they I don't think they're offended. I think they might get bored. So I try to do it where I vary it up. I like divide all the accompaniment people into A and B. So for measures 8 through 16, all the A's play, and 16 through 32, all the B's play the accompaniment. And so when you're not playing the accompaniment, you got to go ahead and karaoke it, or lip sync it. You know what I mean? Go
I
through the
got it. I got it. Got
positions,
it. Got it.
do all that. So you don't want the judges looking and all the horns go down and these horns go up and you know,
Well,
that
I was
kind of
curious
moment.
about that
So
because some and it's funny the difference. Um, I won't say problems. That's not the right word, but the different things that we have to deal with when we have a large school, small ensemble.
mhm.
It's actually trickier at a lower classifications where you've got one performing ensemble on the stage. It may
Yeah.
be anywhere from 30 to 150, depending
Yeah.
on how big your program is, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
You're right.
I can see how it's hard to play light and lyrical with 150 people going bum 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 bum
Yeah.
bum.
Yeah, it becomes a sledgehammer instead of a feather. So yeah, and our good friend Daniel Todd did that for years and did it so well, by,
Yeah,
having certain people play certain parts, and the kids just bought into the program so well that that "Oh, that's what we do." It
yeah.
wasn't an insult. It wasn't, "You can't play the part." "You're not good enough, you can't play this part." It's like, "Hey, man, we got 78 people playing the bump bump part. Said, let's have
You know,
35 play the bump bumps." Yeah.
but I have to tell you, and again, 30 years of this. One of the most exciting things I ever heard was that this is tangent for everybody in the rest of the nation. He had 12 tubas on stage and 20 odd trombones, and they played Joyce's uh, that march. And I'm just like, that is aggressive and
Yeah.
awesome. And but then they would,
Yeah.
as you say, they would tone it down and they would play some really light, pretty things with that same amount of people. So
Yeah, but isn't that cool in a band that size, a symphonic size band is what I call it, that you have
yeah,
that toolbox available where you can literally just waylay the place, or you can just play so pretty and light. And see, you don't really have that if you have a 45-piece wind ensemble on
right.
stage. You can't just get after it that way in terms of sheer excitement and volume. Yeah.
And I've always been, that's really who I am. I want to hear the brass. I controlled, but
Yeah.
don't be scared to be a brass player.
Right.
So anyway, tangent chased.
Yeah, that's all right.
Uh,
And just another item said if you're playing something slow and lyrical, which we went through that on another podcast talking about picking music for UIL, and there's no requirement to play something slow and lyrical, but I think it's a really
sure,
important part of what we do as a band. So maybe for the spring concert, or if your band's mature enough, yeah, get after it for UIL. Think about, are your kids moving together? Are they muddying things up due to lack of subdivision? They're not really thinking the subdivision, they just move when it feels like it's time to move. Because
sure.
kids tend to think, this is a very general, broad brush I'm painting with. Kids tend to think slow means not accurate. Just
Okay.
smudge all the entries. It doesn't have to be as precise. This is slow and pretty. It doesn't have to be as precise. But we can do that by simply just using a metronome. We could bop it, just hit the attack. If they have whole notes, there's a play, 2, 3, ba, 2, 3, and you get that blah, 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 blah. in the organization. And then after a while, they'll figure it out. They'll go, oh, that's supposed to go together. So just make sure we do that. Just make sure things are moving together, especially again in the accompaniment parts.
So also, along with this, we're speaking of habits. We're speaking of doing things better, being better musicians. If you let them do it wrong long enough, you develop the bad habit.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly right.
And it's way harder to get it right again because they've already figured their brain has already, the human brain is amazing. Once we learn something, we can kind of do it muscle memory by rote. Not rote, wrong word. Muscle memory. We know when that happens, when it happens, and we just do it.
Right.
I play bass that way. I don't think about where my fingers are going because they already know where to go. Because that's the way I've done it forever. But let them play wrong long enough and done. Agreed? I mean, or much harder task of getting it right.
Yeah, or something as simple as just like tone quality. I can tell when I go in and work a band that's a high school group, and I can tell if their staff or maybe it might be a one-person gig, if they actually teach really hard with their beginners and middle schoolers, that tone is the job one. We must make a good sound because by the time they're to high school, if they're playing with really poor tone qualities, it's almost impossible unless they are very concerted in their efforts to change that.
Right.
It's really tough. So we've got to teach this clarity and precision and tone quality as a beginner. Now, granted, a beginner sound is a beginner sound, right?
Yeah.
But there's such thing as a good beginner sound, you know?
But I've also heard directors say this. I need to hear the prettiest sound you can make when we do this. Ready? And
That's
they get
right.
that concept going. And we had that conversation with Lindsay Gold. One of the first
Yeah.
things she does is work on tone production. It doesn't matter what we're playing. We're going to play it slow and pretty until we're not going to move on until we can.
Yeah.
I think that's how I remember her kind of talking about how she was rebuilding, was working on how they sounded for how fast they could read, or because you had to get to line 32 or line 33 or, whatever your lesson plan was in your brain that day.
Right.
Don't move there until we
Don't
develop the
move
habit
until
of
it
a great
sounds
sound.
good.
Yeah.
And as they get older, they'll get a little bit lazy. I went to work for a band that was going to state for the first time ever, and I worked them last Monday, and they marched prelims on Wednesday. Think about that, doing a clinic, 48 hours before they march prelims. And so the first thing I did with them, I said, guys, we're just not getting the right kind of sound here. We need to do this, 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 and this. And immediately they did it better. So was it what I did? No. They've been taught how to make a good sound. They've been taught how to produce a good marching band sound.
Just had to
They were
remember.
just tired. They were
Yeah.
tired, and I just heard it from a different person. They'd made it to state for the first time in the history of the school, and, and I can understand that feeling. It's like, "We've done it. Let's just go
We
eat
hit the
pizza now."
goal. Yeah.
Yeah, we hit the goal, and I can respect that, but man, they just turned it on, and it did a really good job at prelims. So it's something that you can tell right away if you visit a band hall. I guarantee you, like in your, career when you were actually calling on schools, that you can tell right away if there's a lot of teaching of tone quality going on, within
Sure.
the first 2 seconds. You walk through the door, it's like, "Oh my god," or you walk in and go, "Oh my god, that's great."
You can say, oh my God, 2 different ways.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, let me ask you
There's lots
this.
of different versions of God.
This is Derrick being a non-teacher, but are you a chorale guy?
Oh, yeah.
Do you? Here's the deal, man. I can remember some of my favorite moments in any ensemble, and we never did it for anybody. Well, we did it before we went to marching at marching contests. We did it in the end zone, but Bach chorale number 16. It just
Oh, yeah.
there's something about those sounds and those chords and playing with a great tone that you
Mhm.
go, this is why I play music.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a thought for somebody looking to, because I think they're so exposed that it's real easy to find
Right.
who's not playing with great tone.
Or something as strange as, taking a King March and taking the 8 measures that start at letter A and play it as a chorale at 80 beats a minute
Okay.
and just make everyone play everything's gonna be legato and slow, so it's one tay, two tay, one tay. Beautiful melody. And yeah, the only way to teach good quality tone is actually through chorales and long tones. That's the only way to do it.
It's great you say that. I ordered Free World March yesterday for people getting ready for contests and thinking through that stuff with King, Swearingen. Those are just some great old marches,
I
man.
like those old arrangements. Yeah,
So
those are
cool.
fun.
Okay.
Something
So
else
what
to
else
kind of
can we do?
think about. And this sounds really funny to say, but do your kids have their horns set on their faces before the breath occurs? Or is that happening as they bring their horn to their face? And we get so used to that. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and their horn's moving. So everybody gets set, play, instead of set, play. It's something that simple logistically as an atomic habit. Just make sure, just wait your time and wait them out. It's hard, but wait them out. The younger they are, the harder it is. But just wait them out. Said, I can't start until our horns are set. You don't have to be mad about it. Just say, I just can't start till our horns are set. All your mouthpieces need to be on your lips. All
Okay.
mouthpieces on lips. Everybody sit up straight. All mouthpieces on lips. And then after a while, it gets to where it's like, use the word set. You say, okay, everybody get set. They'll get set. Then you bring them in instead of, okay, here we go. 1, 2, ready, play. And all the horns are flying and trombone slides are moving and all that. So kind of double check that in your setup if you're a director out there.
So again, helping people just having thoughts. Is it a whatever works? Because I remember baton up was our get your horns to your mouth. And he would
Right.
hold it there till everybody was set.
That's right.
And then
Yeah,
so
but you'd be surprised, or maybe not be surprised, how many times it doesn't really occur because the director gets in such a hurry. And I've been there before. You get such a hurry to get things going that you just start without them. It's almost
or
like
you
you're
do
supposed to
this.
take your grandma to work and you forget her.
So what am I
So I got to get grandma to the doctor. I got to get grandma to the doctor. Hurry, go. I got to go. I was like, oh, I forgot to put grandma in the car.
you've seen that
It
commercial
doesn't
where
make sense.
the guy answers his phone and it's his wife. Where are you? Well, I'm unloading the truck. Well, I went to the store with you. He's like,
That's right.
ah,
Yeah. 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 And I think
but
in certain situations, we've all been there before, but it does work that
because
way. Yeah.
I've also seen this from a lot of my friends who direct. They'll do the baton up, but their eyes are on the score, flipping for something that they want to pay attention to, and they never stop to see if everybody's actually set.
Right. Right.
So small thing. But
Yeah. Small thing. Small thing. Make eye contact when you give the downbeat. Yeah. Even if you don't have any idea what letter you told them to start at. Just go ahead and you'll figure it out. But don't start staring at the score because
that's where you can
that's
go.
what they're
No,
going
no,
to
no.
do.
Let's try that again, guys.
Yeah. Do you remember those old, you had to deal with water and those birds that would go down and it'd go down into the water, then it would come back up. And I'd always laugh thinking about that because all the director would do is do this and all the kids do the same thing. Then every once in a while, they come up about every 8 measures, they all go. And they all go back to their music, so adjust those stand heights, as a director, that's kind of your security blanket. Man, I've been there so badly, that you stare at the score because you just keep wanting to find things. But even at contest, what I did was I had the music learned well enough that I would keep it on the stand on the day of contest, but I never opened the score. It was there as a security blanket, but that way I maintained eye contact with the band the whole time, and it's not that I memorized the score by any means. I couldn't tell
Sure.
you if it was a G sharp at measure 46 or not, but I knew the form of the piece, I knew exactly what the tempo was gonna be, I knew exactly who to cue at what spot, and I
Yeah, so
just
you knew your
practiced it
cues.
enough. Yeah, I knew all my cues, so I just did not open that because I did not want to ever look down. When they looked up, I wanted to see my eyes, or at least the fact that I'm looking somewhere in the band where we're all engaged instead of seeing the top of my bald head,
Uh-huh.
staring at them.
It's funny as we get ready for this, I do this a lot going, okay, where's the light gonna hit the balls?
That's right. You're like me, pretty soon it's just gonna I'm gonna show up one day and look like Mike Tyson's head.
I gotta tell you though, even as a student, if we rehearse something long enough, I really didn't need the music anymore either.
That's right.
That it I never want to say don't read anymore. And but if you play something 1,000 times in 3 months,
Yeah.
at some point you kind of got a pretty good idea of what's happening. And if you ask me this, and it's the same way, not to fall off too far of a cliff, but if I get a new Bible, I can't find anything because
Yeah.
I know where everything was in the old one. On a piece of music, I know where I don't have, I could, with that, you just say, show me where you'll put, and I can point at this piece of music exactly
Mhm.
where you are. I know what you're doing. All that
Yeah.
is to go along with your, uh, the comfort zone score. There's nothing we're going to do in rehearsal before we go on contest stage, in my opinion. If we
Right.
haven't learned it by now,
Yeah.
now we're just doing what we can do the best we can do it. So let's
And
do
as
it
a
together.
director, if we spend our time on stage flipping through the score, we might get ourselves distracted. We're like, "Oh, I'm on the wrong page," kinda doing that. And I tell you what, I judged down in the valley one time, and I believe it was Roma High School, a really incredible band program down in the valley, and they amazed me because I came out on stage, and all that was there were chairs and a podium. And the band set up, and the director got on the podium, and not one person had a sheet of music on stage. And they played their whole 30-minute contest program by
Wow.
memory.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "That's pretty good."
Yeah.
And so I think in a smaller setting, like with my crew, we would spend time working parts of the music, and then we'd have them flip their stands and then play that section and flip it back. We weren't working on memorizing, we were working on breaking them from always trying to stare at the music. It's get their stand situated where they can see me and they can see their music, kind of peripheral vision kind of moment, where they're kind of doing the same focus point. And so we'd try to do that. And I think that would help, and the kids would realize that, I really do kind of know this music by the time it's a week before contest. Like you
Sure.
said, you've played it enough times, you should be able to do it.
So I'm just going to say this to make sure that everybody understands where we're coming from. We are not advocating for memorizing your concert
No, no,
program,
no. I think that would be hard to do, and the juice would not be worth the squeeze of
and
trying to
we
have
are
them
not
play off all their music by memory.
advocating for the think system, Professor Harold Hill.
That's right.
Use your music if you need your music, but the
Yeah,
point is you got to make music, and to do that, you have to communicate between the conductor
yeah.
and the musicians. So
And something as simple as on a piece of music, memorizing the first couple of measures.
yeah,
That note's not gonna change. Why does the
you're
band just
safe.
stare at the music
Even the
during
first
the
note, you
downbeat? They should be
know what the
staring at the
first
band
note
direct.
is.
Yeah, you know what the first note is. You don't have to memorize the whole thing, but how about the first 4 measures of the march? Just memorize
Yeah,
that way you can stare at the band director, and the band director can stare at you.
yeah,
That'll do a world of good because I see that as another bad habit that occurs. On the contrary of that, they just all have their heads down and, elbows up and heads down and nose to the grindstone, and, they don't even acknowledge each other during the performance, okay? Um, and something real simple, students, are they matching energy and intensity of sound throughout the entire chord? And we're not talking levels of volume, but levels of quality of sound. And that's probably the most common mistake. And people really think it's really hard to teach that, but it's really not. You just isolate a couple of chords and just have the kids listen to it, and you work on tone quality, and you do a little bit every day. And eventually it starts to all fall into place like a jigsaw puzzle. You're not going to fix it like a hammer and a nail fixing the roof, but it's going to happen over time. But so many directors, and myself included for quite a number of years, just kind of ignore that. It's like, well, I can hear the good players, so I guess it's all right, you know? And so the mediocre players, we kind of ignore them, but we've got to bring them up to the same level of tone quality as the good players.
So would you say that that's a bad habit that maybe we don't even know we have, that sometimes we just rely on the good players and try to cover up bad bad sounds as opposed
Well, that's
to
exactly right.
fi- finding the bad sounds and making them better?
Yeah, it's an eye and ear opening experience as a director to pick out in your mind, write down who your strongest 15 players are. Then on a part of a run of the march, ask those 15 not to play. Oh my goodness. And you realize how much you've been relying on those 15 kids, and all of a
Right.
sudden there's kids not coming in at the right time, and it's part of that they're used to following, but still you get the point. You take out
No,
the stars of any band, and you
but
realize that, hell, a lot of these kids don't know their parts. They're being covered up by the good players. Yeah.
Right, and that's human nature to lean on the strong.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, and to not work because the strong players get the job done. That's
right.
human nature too. I don't have to learn my part because Leroy plays first trumpet, and he's a really good trumpet player, and I'm glad to be second chair, but you take Leroy out of the mix, and all of a sudden the second chair player's going, "Oh my goodness, I don't really know my parts. I've been hiding behind Leroy the
Right.
whole time." So
He's being
that's a
carried.
great experiment to do.
I have probably an unpopular opinion. All the way through my educational experience, the the 5 best players in any section were all crowded to the first parts. The best players always played all of the best players played first part, and by the time you got to third part, uh, not disparaging anybody, but by definition, you had your weakest players.
Correct. Yeah,
And so a lot of my mentality was, I think I would work on a way to sell first chair is first chair, first part. Second chair is first chair, second part.
yeah.
Third chair. And I don't know that that would ever work that way, but at least you would have all those voices covered by people that could help down through this. Does that make sense? And I
It
realize it
does.
probably doesn't, it will never happen that way, but that would be
Oh,
my
it
thought.
does happen. It does happen.
Okay.
If some people are really smart logistically, I wouldn't put the second chair player as second part their entire concert, but we would divide up the parts on the march. You're going to play first. You're going to play second. You're going to play first. You're going to play second. Then reverse that for the next piece. Then reverse it for the last piece. But I would usually leave the strongest player on first part the whole time, just so
Sure,
there's a
sure.
sense of continuity to it. But all the other players knew, and especially where I use it to my advantage with sight reading contest. Oh my goodness. So we would come out of the concert stage, we'd line up in the hallway, then I'd tell them to switch, and all the kids would switch in the alignment with, like, second chair clarinets now playing second clarinet,
Right.
and third chair clarinets playing first clarinet, fourth chair clarinets playing second clarinet, and so if there's 2 clarinet parts, you get everything covered. Do that with every section because going into sight reading, the stake tells you what parts are there on the sight reading, how many trombone
Sure.
parts, etcetera. So we would just switch, and that way we would use exactly what you're saying to beef up our sight reading, and
And
the
there's
kids
lots of
understood
times
it.
in between pieces, the entire section would stand up and adjust and move and then sit back down, getting ready
You're
for the next
exactly
piece.
right. Yeah,
So,
there's plenty of times in my crew they did that, and it's as a salesman, you just gotta try to sell it to the students is, this is what a professional group does. If you watch the Marine Band, you'll see them do it. You know, first chair clarinet doesn't play, the clarinet section will move around according to the pieces because of the demands of the pieces.
right.
So, if it's good for the Marine Band, President's Own, I guess it's
If
good
they
for our
say
high school band. It's not
or middle school. Yeah,
we're not treating y'all
that's
like
great.
babies.
Okay.
It's not that kind of thing. Here's a good one that I notice all the time, and I was really bad about this, by the way. Are you allowing the students playing the band director's main instrument to play outside the ensemble sound because it does not bother you as a listener?
Now you back up and get off my toes.
Yeah, every clinician would come in and go, "Mike, the trumpets are too loud." I go, "I kinda like it that way."
Can't
They
say
go said, "Oh, okay, you're right. Okay, trumpets back down." But I think
you
there's
say that.
some legitimacy to that. If someone's a trombone player, the trombones tend to stick out of the ensemble because 'cause they're used to sitting in the trombone section. Does it make sense?
It does.
So if whatever your main instrument is out there, kinda record your band and listen for that because 'cause we've all done it. It might be your
Yeah.
turn to have done it, you know?
It's funny because I'll listen to other ensembles, not mine,
Yeah,
other ensembles and go, "Ooh, that's that," with total, I'm not picking on anything. I'm just telling you what I hear.
yeah.
But I step up in front of my group and I'm like, "Oh, it's good. Good trumpets."
I'll tell you a great
So
UIL story about that. I was on a judging panel, and there was a band that made a 1-2-2. They got a 1 from Mike Lenny. They got a 2 from the other 2 judges, and one of the other judges, after everything's done, you kinda talk about things. You don't do it
sure,
before the sheets go out, but they goes, "Well, what'd you
sure.
do with that band?" I said, "Oh, I gave 'em a 1." I said, "A 1? All I could hear was trumpet." And I go
Like that's a bad
I
thing?
I go, "I guess that's probably why I gave 'em a 1." So, even as a UL judge, it kind of my mind veered towards, that's pretty acceptable to me that the trumpets are outside the ensemble sound where the other 2 judges, The correct judges at that moment were the ones that said, those trumpets need to back down, man. I can't hear the trombone, euphonium, tuba sound because the trumpets are overplaying." So it taxes us at all different levels, whether we're judging or whether we're clinicking or whether it's our own band, you know.
That's funny. But see, now that you said that, I'm gonna probably
Now
hit
you
sit through my next concert going, "Now Mike plays trumpet, and his trumpets are."
Yeah, yeah. Aren't the trumpets always supposed to be the dominant force in a band? I mean,
Or,
it gets
but,
ridiculous. Or it could be
even
clarinets. It could be clarinets just screaming
right.
through in a band.
My good friend saxophone player director. Oh,
Oh
yeah,
god,
let's
yes.
the it's just like, the Terror of the Tempo episode. Now every concert I go
Yeah.
to, the
My,
big girl.
supervising, teacher when I was student teaching, he said it facetiously, but there was a little bit of truth to it. You could tell by his voice. He goes, "If I ever hear a saxophone at a UIL concert and it's not a solo, that's automatically a 2, and we go down from there." And I think there's a little bit of truth to that, Mr. Richardson.
She
Said, "If I
that's
ever hear a saxophone sound outside the ensemble, it's not a solo, that's a 2nd division, and we're going down from there, buddy."
this is not stage band.
Yeah, this is not stage band. Yeah, this is not, yeah,
No
not
jazz
Glenn
bandy.
Miller. Yeah, it's hilarious. And,
Uh,
another one to think about, and this is one I was really bad about. Have you listened to the band from somewhere other than the podium? The only
100%.
time I ever did that, I was I was almost, like, stuck to the podium a lot of times. I would have to write it in my notes. "Get your butt off the podium, Mike." So to walk around the band, but a lot of times we'd have student teachers. So student teachers would conduct the band as a lab session. You know what I mean? They'd do our contest
Sure.
pieces and they'd work the band. And it's amazing what you can hear when you get off the podium. In fact, the smartest directors I know build an aisle in the middle of their setup where they can get off the podium and walk straight down the band all the way to the percussion back and forth. And that way they can go on the outsides, around the back, and straight down the middle. And the kids are used to having that aisle there. So you hear a lot more things from a different
So
perspective.
so you're saying sonically 10 feet can make a world of difference in what you hear.
That and the fact that you're not on the podium. I know this sounds weird, but a very good friend of mine said one time, said, "This minute you step on the podium, you lose 80% of your brain power." It's because you're thinking of so many other things. You're thinking, "How do
Sure.
I look on the podium? Am I conducting right? Do I have a booger out hanging out my nose? Do I have?" You start. It becomes this public speaking moment. You know what I mean? Because you're in front of
I
60,
do.
70 kids.
I got it.
So once you get off the podium, all that disappears, and you're going, "Oh my god, the clarinets don't know their part." So, but I didn't even notice that when I was on the podium.
That's so funny, Mike.
And
Why does it keep
proximity is
looking at
your
me?
Yeah, proximity is your friend. The trombones will do what trombones do unless you go back there and stand next to them, and then trombones do the correct things. You know what I mean? Because it's proximity. Proximity is your friend. The closer, you don't have to yell at them if they're talking. If you just get off the podium and walk all the way back to the trombones or down that middle aisle and stand next to them, they tend to get a little quieter because you're just closer to them. Proximity is your friend. Remember that out
Sure.
there.
That's great. Okay. So, what else can we talk about? Things to do, things to quit, things to work harder on.
I think another thing too that we forget as directors, unless you're a percussionist. I'm not a percussionist. I'm
You
a
just pointed at
musician.
yourself.
Yeah, I'm not a percussionist. I'm a musician. Okay, so all my percussion friends are going to blow me out of the water on that statement.
Okay.
Okay, but I'm going to say this because they will agree with this. Have you, as a director, communicated what you expect out of the percussion section the same way that you have for the winds? Think about that
I
for a
can
second.
already.
There's so many times I know directors who have gone to clinic their band 2 weeks before contest, and I'll go, "Hey, there's a really important vibe part right here. Does anyone cover that?" Like, "Hey, percussion, y'all." "No, no, we lost that part about 3 months ago." And the
Right.
director had no idea that that part was missing, because it's this weird outside territory that we just don't want to delve into, but you've got to have the same expectation of dynamics and arc of the phrasing and what kind of sounds. Now, I'm not a percussion expert by any means, but I can tell when I don't like something I'm hearing. I
Yeah.
can go, I don't like the way that sounds. Can we use a different mallet? And I don't know what to tell them, but I'll be like, use
Right.
a different mallet. And they'll do it and say, yeah, that's better. Use that mallet. Use the blue ones instead of the green ones.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Right.
have that same level of expectation because if you don't pay attention to your percussion, they'll have a salad bar and a fondue station set up and be playing
Good say,
Uno back there.
you tell me, true or false? 90% of communication, in my experience, from the conductor to the percussion section, is drummers be quiet.
Yeah, yeah. Drummers be quiet or you're too loud. Percussion parts are too loud. I can't hear the band. So they spend their whole life in that. And it's made it better for percussion because a lot the bigger programs, we have percussion directors, band directors who
Specialists.
are
Yeah.
specialists. And that almost makes it to where it's like we really start to ignore them because it's like, oh, that's someone else's job. But it's still your job as the conductor. If you've got to kind of actively listen when you do recordings, listen to the percussion and discuss it with your percussion person if you have that luxury. If you
Right.
don't have that luxury, you better figure out percussion pretty quick, you know,
Right. Well, you
to
just
make
can't
it
ignore
happen.
them. They're part of the ensemble.
Yeah, you can't ignore them because they will find things to do.
That's what I'm saying. Percussion,
They
shut up.
will. And going back to the woodwind brass, basically, are you allowing the kids to play out of tune because you're trying to cram for a concert? Or maybe even putting up with bad habits in the ensemble just because we gotta hack out notes, kids. Let's go, let's go. We've all been there, but you've got to eliminate that as much as possible. You've got to have your plan set to where you're never in the moment where you're trying to cram notes in because you've got a concert in 2 days. If you're at that level, you've picked remember you pick your rating when you pick your program?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
so
where we're at, my friend.
you might go listen to the episode on choosing music.
That's on choosing music. Yeah, because and I've been there where you just keep, musically beating on the children, and it's like the beating shall continue until right notes increase. It's like and everybody hates each other by the day of contest. It's like, we just wanna get this over with, and someone's mama makes a cake, and we're done. Let's just be done with it. And as a director, I'm ready to have it over with as the kids are what a terrible experience for everybody, isn't it? You
Yeah.
know, when our whole goal is just to get this over with now, so and that all comes from me as a director. I've got to set that standard. This is the
Sure.
music we can achieve. This is the music we can achieve, okay?
And maybe that's probably one of the most important things we could talk about as far as good. It didn't seem that important in November, but here we are. If we
Yeah.
would have taken the time to listen to our group, to analyze our group, to pick music that fits our group, it's probably a better experience for everybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's kinda what it's supposed to be about. It's
Yeah,
not
but it's
about cramming notes in to get a little trophy. Who
back
cares
to your
about that?
comments, or to one of your favorite sayings. Play what you can versus play what you want to versus play,
Mhm.
what you wish you
What you
could
wish
play.
you could play. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You gotta stick to it, and your brain will rationalize it the other way. So
Yeah.
you've got to make sure to use friends and mentors to play recordings and they'll go, God, Mike, that's stupid. You're not gonna be able to do Lincoln Sharp Posey for contests. You're ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know?
So, and again, I'll just throw this in as part of that everybody has this little voice inside that says, you got plenty of time in November.
Mhm.
And then suddenly it's February and you're like, I don't have time.
Yeah, then you
We
don't have
have to
time.
teach ourselves now to, it's not wrong to be realistic. Is that a good way to say that?
Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, grab the school calendar and mark off your rehearsal days of all those picture days, and the kids are taking the ASVAB or the basketball tournament, and your basketball team's almost always in the state tournament. You got to figure that half your band's going to be gone because they're going to go watch. So you figure those out. Then I always add in 4 or 5
Unexpected.
kind of
Yeah.
wild card days
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that I don't know the principal's going to say. We're going to do this, so we're not having first period today. Okay. And that way it doesn't get you mad. Does it make
Sure.
sense? You don't get furious about the principal took it. No, I planned for 5 wild card
Yeah.
days, and this is
Yeah.
one of those 5. And so you just got to be realistic. Like you said, you just have to be realistic about it. You
And
don't
can I
have
throw
all the
this
time
in?
in the world.
Relative to that, also, quit worrying about what your best friend's playing. or
Oh
the
god, yes.
similar program down the road. They don't have your circumstance. Be realistic
Yeah.
to your circumstance.
Yeah, and
Your
that's so
job
hard
is
not
not
to
to
do.
impress your buddies.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that funny? That was probably one of my worst habits. "Hey,
Yeah.
what are you playing for contest? How long is your contest program? Hey, how many
Yeah.
soloists do you have?" Because we want to be better than the neighbor, and I always loved the bands in my town, but we always kinda played that game. We would kinda talk and kind of a passive aggressive, "So, well, what are you thinking about doing for contest?" "Well, I'm thinking of doing this." "Oh."
Here's it.
So,
That's what I was waiting on.
yeah.
Really?
"Oh, really?" So you try to talk them out of playing something that might fit their band, so your band might sound better, so it's
Yeah.
funny. It's all done really more in good humor. We don't have any control over that
Sure.
program, but it's fun. It's like brothers fighting playing football in the backyard versus dad playing catch with their son playing baseball. We're
Right.
more like brothers wrestling each other down to the ground, but we're
More of a
still
rugby
brothers.
match.
More of a rugby match, yeah, yeah.
But my point is still kinda, especially as we start out, do what's realistic. Quit. Listen, Mike Lundy's been over at Wiley for 30 years, 19, 20, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And he knows his group and he knows what they can do. And he's got a pretty good grasp on what's going on. Here we are, our first year or two in this program. Play what you can.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
No
I'll
doubt.
leave it alone.
Hey, and, 2 more. One's real simple. Have you checked your music stand height lately with the students? Because I
Now,
always
you
tell
brought that
them.
up twice.
Yeah,
You
and
brought that
it's
up
true.
twice.
It's like even when I go do clinics, like I'm doing an all-district band up in Wichita Falls, then doing a all-region band over in, Midland this year, and the first thing I do is they'll come in and all the stands are all the way down to as low as they can go, and they kinda like it that way, unless they're from really, really strong programs, and I always tell them, said, I like to see now YouTube, we can kinda see it, but see, this is as much as I wanna see out of them. I do
Kilroy.
not wanna see this. Yeah, and it's, was Tool Time?
Yeah,
Tim
that's
Allen,
right. The
the
neighbor.
neighbor over the fence, and that's
Yeah.
dated now. They used to work with the kids, now they're like, "What?" And so I don't even bring
What
that
are you
up
talking about?
anymore. Um,
Here,
but it
say,
needs to
I'm
be
sure
where they
everybody just
can.
said Kilroy. What is Kilroy?
Yeah, Kilroy,
But
yeah, that's a World War II thing. Talk about an old person over there. That's what GIs were writing on bombers.
yeah,
Kilroy
it's
was
funny.
here. But yeah, just getting the stand to the right height makes such a world of difference,
Yeah.
because they can see you and they can see the music at the same time. So just check on that and maybe write it on the board and maybe have section leaders give them a little syllabus, a little like 3 or 4 little pointers that you can stick in their stand and that they can sit there and they tell their stand, "Man, everybody get up your stands, get it the right height. You should
Right.
see Mr. Laney. He should not see anything below your nose." So just have your leadership help you with that. But it's easy to get caught into the mode of the stands are all the way down because that's how we load them into the racks. Okay. We take them out of the racks, they're all the way down. So it takes effort. The kids have to think about it. Otherwise, they just throw their music on there and start playing. And the last
Over
thing
the
really
top of
is,
them.
yeah, yeah, that's right. You pull it up and the top falls off, hits them in the face. I've seen that happen. The last one is, our students interested and engaged in the rehearsal? How many times have you watched a rehearsal? I don't know how many rehearsals you've had the luxury and joy of watching, but you can tell the rehearsals in which it's like all the kids are in a dentist office, and they're just all sitting there waiting to rinse and spit and, open their mouth and get ready to play their horn. There's no when I'm in the dentist office, there's no need for my opinion, right? They just tell me what to do, and so they're like in a dentist office and they have no opinions at all. And this always throws them for a loop in almost every band. When I ask them a question, like, "Hey guys, do you think we should crescendo in measure 14?" And they'll look at you like the preacher just asked a question. They're like, "Do we answer that? Or is this like church where there's like this invisible glass wall that we don't
Did you
answer
just
the."
set us up?
Yeah, yeah, or is this a trick? Are we gonna answer wrong and he's gonna laugh and point at us? Yeah, you're right, there's a lot of psychological levels in all this, but if you start real simple and kinda get them warmed up with something as, "Hey guys, where do you think that note should release right there? What count?" It's like, obviously, it's gonna be on count 1, and you'll have a couple of kids say, "Well, count 4 because it's a whole no." So, and then all the rest of them, "No, no, no, it's count 1." Then you kinda warm them up a little bit, then you start asking deeper, deeper questions. It's amazing with beginning trumpet class saying, "How does that song make you feel?"
You're
Think
brave.
about that. Yeah, and they'll look at you and they'll go, "Well, that song makes me kinda sad." So, "Why?" "Because I can't play it." "Oh, well, that's a good reason, so let's work on it." Another kid will say, "Well, it just sounds sad." It's maybe a little thing in, like, a minor mode
Right.
or something really upbeat, and they'll say, "That makes me really happy." So, "Well, why does it make you happy?" Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting to dig into those little brains? And then they'll say, "Well, because it's fast and it's got lots of notes, and I like fast and lots of notes, so that makes me happy."
He is a
So all of a
trumpet
sudden,
player.
yeah, yeah, that's trumpet class, yeah. Could it be higher? Can we take that up an octave? No, we're in 6th grade. Do not take that up an octave yet. That's for 7th grade, you know, so we kinda work that process and try to work that all the way up through our system, all the way to the high school kids, and we'd like to ask their opinions on things. And it gets to the point sometimes where it's almost overwhelming because they start to give their opinions. You
Right.
They'll start, "Mr. Lenny, don't you think we should, like, decrescendo before the such and so the recapitulation of the B section that happens in measure 46?" And you're going like, "What do you where's this coming from?" And they're like, "Well, I mean, yeah, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Let's try that."
You're right.
You're right. But at that point, they really are engaged in what's happening, aren't they? To the point of where I've almost lost control of the rehearsal because I could almost step off the podium and let the first chair clarinet get up there, and they could probably run the rehearsal with the kids' help as well as
Yeah.
I could run it because they're engaged in what's happening. So those are just some rehearsal reflections on concert band. Sometimes you have to stop doing something, sometimes you have to start doing something, and sometimes you have to get better at something you're already doing. And if you'll do those 3 rules, man, life will be so much easier than just, uh plans on the board, do warm-ups, do the march, see y'all later, you know?
I agree. Good stuff, my friend. Good stuff. Everybody, I'm not sure that it wouldn't be a bad. Do you put stuff on your bathroom mirror so you can read it every day?
I don't, but
I
I
know.
know people who do that. Yeah.
I
I think it's
also,
a good idea.
I'm just saying I'm sure that you put stuff on your stand before
Oh, yeah.
where you can see it. So you don't have to tell anybody what's going on, but there's probably moments you can look down and go, should I be working harder on this or should I eliminate this?
Yeah, kinda like my note, "Hey, Mike, get your butt off the podium." It'll be a yellow Post-it. "Mike, get
Right.
your butt off the podium," just to
That's
remind me.
funny.
And another
Cool,
thing
cool, cool.
programs can do, I know we're wanting to tie it up, but a good friend of mine, Brian Movich, you have to put the emphasis on Mo. That's how he pronounces his name. He allows his staff each to have 1 full day to leave the campus, to choose a program of their choosing, and go watch rehearsals all day.
Mm,
Isn't that
I think that's
absolutely
great.
brilliant? And so the
Yeah.
rest now they're luxurious enough that, it's a 4A school with a certain number of directors. They can cover without a sub. And they lose
Right.
some sectional time or whatever. But those guys come back and they're like, "Hey, I went over to Capel and watched those guys rehearse, and I learned these 3 things." To me, for Brian, that's absolutely brilliant. I never thought about doing that, but that's
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant. Just with permission of your admin, of course. You can't just take
Sure.
employees and tell them to leave campus, but it makes sense. Go watch some programs they really admire, like Argyle or whatever, whatever program they decide to go to, it's their
Sure.
choice.
Well, I'm going to tell you this too. I have a friend I loved calling on is in a 1A school
Mhm.
that was close enough to a lot of others that he would call them and say, do you care if I come watch you? Do you
Yeah.
care if I come see how, and he picked people that he respected, but he
Mhm.
was also, uh, this gentleman is also willing to go. He says there's something he can learn everywhere.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
So he'll go watch somebody that's been teaching for 30 years. He'll go watch somebody that's been teaching 5 years. He'll be comparative level, bigger schools. He just wants to watch people and get better at what he does. And the action, it's just such the opposite of what we've had conversations of people don't want people to know what they don't know. This guy, I'm just so impressed that he's like, I may know, I may not. Let's go find out. Let's go see if I
Yeah.
can get better. So anyway, that's to tag on your story of the personal days and letting people go do that. Never quit
Yeah.
learning.
That's right.
So, well, awesome, friend. I don't know that this hasn't been one of my more favorite topics to talk about, just because I think we all live there.
Oh, yeah. Whether it's a band director or just our general life.
Yeah.
You
We
know?
just go through the motions sometimes. Got to go make the donuts
That's right.
instead of analyze another old man reference. Sorry.
That's right.
As opposed to looking at what we're doing and why do we feel that way?
Yeah.
And I don't want to dive off and start a whole nother topic, but don't be scared to look at what you're doing and ask yourself, is this a good habit? Should we quit this? Or do I just need to work harder?
Yes,
So,
because it didn't matter whether it was after a marching season or after a concert evaluation season or the end of the year. I had in my file cabinet 3 separate files, and I would sit down and I would write down everything that went well, everything that I thought didn't go well, possible ways to correct it, and I just put it as that season. And then that next time it came around, I could pull that out and go, "Oh, yeah, that didn't go that really well for me." And so, like you said, I just reached out to people much wiser than myself and said, "Hey, we just couldn't do this right." Said, "What do I do?" And so you're right, just evaluation of what you've done is something we forget to do a lot. Has to be forced upon us.
and I would almost say this too, if you're not enjoying this as much as you used to, it might not be the kids, it might not be you, it might just be some simple habits that are making it harder than it has to be.
Yes.
So, okay, man. Well, let's agree to reconvene.
All right,
I
sounds
enjoyed
good,
talking
man.
to you, my friend.
It's
And
been fun.
I don't I don't know if your consulting and clinicking slows down now or speeds back up or but
Yeah, we're in the, a week or so before Thanksgiving, and it slows down, and that's a good thing because I have a
let's
hard
breathe.
time saying no.
Mike, let's talk about those habits.
Yeah, I have habits. Yeah, I need an intervention on some of that, because
All right,
I
brother.
just like helping people out. Yeah.
And we like being helped. So you have a great week. I'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Derek.